Good evening, Garden City. I'd like to call to order our Garden City workshop for November 3rd, 2025 at 6 p.m. Our first order of business will be the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mr. Smith, if you'd take roll call, please.
Mayor Jacobs?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Dold?
Here.
Councilmember Hughes?
Here.
Councilmember Witt?
Here.
Councilmember King?
Here.
Councilmember Dold?
Here.
Councilmember Karafotis?
Here.
You have a quorum of 7.
Okay, thank you. We called this workshop just to get some information and discussion going for the council, and city manager, Mr. Gibbons, had put some stuff together for us, and I'll turn it over to him.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This workshop's in response to some council inquiries and some opportunities to examine and address any issues we have with our blight enforcement and our rental regulations in Garden City. It is an important part of a city to maintain quality of life, is to address blight and to make sure our housing meets a certain standard, and that one of those things is to regulate rental housing. So tonight, there's 3 particular topics and 3 methods of regulation we want to discuss tonight. All of them have to do with both blight and rental policy regulation. So we'll go through those. There's a lot of information to digest. This discussion plus some memos attached on each topic should hopefully inform council, give you the ability to, even if it's not tonight at the table, to come up with some questions, some concerns, or areas you'd like us to proceed, and then come back with the proper amount of information we can give you, so you can give me some direction as if some of these topics are where you'd like to go. It's sort of a la carte. You can do all, none, or 1 or 2. It's certainly up to council. But I just feel it's important to let you know of what's out there, what's available to us to regulate and to eliminate blight, and some methods that we can utilize to make that happen. First, though, those 3 topics are, first, there's a East Lansing style rental overlay ordinance, which regulates the number of rentals within a particular area of a city. It's neighborhood driven. East Lansing currently utilizes it to limit the number of rentals. We're going to talk a little about that, but also the current model of rental regulation we do right now, so you can compare those 2. As requested by council, we're going to discuss fire inspections for single family and multifamily rentals, an area of important concern to make sure the health and safety of our rented homes meets the standards which keep those who live there safe. And then lastly, administrative hearing bureaus versus what we're currently doing. An administrative hearing bureau is a blight court. Because we're a population over 7,500 and we're a city, we can establish a blight court on our own. And we can talk about the merits of that versus our current municipal civil infraction process. First, just a little bit though, just to kind of give us the why and the where we are. Our master plan, and our number 1 objective in our master plan is to maintain quality housing. Specifically maintaining the viability of housing in strong neighborhoods and improving our lower quality housing. That's right out of our master plan. And some of the objectives and reasons behind that is because the quality, affordability, and availability of a community's housing stock has a significant impact on the vitality and quality of the community. And it certainly helps housing values, which is something I'm sure all of our residents and particular property owners are interested in. Not only that, though, it's about safety and outcomes. Rental inspections regularly already catch high-impact hazards. Just doing some research for this, in 5 years of checking rentals, we discovered 1,844 missing bedroom smoke alarms. 90.6% of those have been corrected, and the ones that haven't are pretty much out being looked at right now. They're part of that process. So, and then neighborhood stability and fairness, consistent, even-handed enforcement. It curbs deterioration of the neighborhood, it protects responsible owners and tenants, and it sustains our property values, which is extremely important to us. To combat blight and to inspect rentals and maintain good housing stock, currently we use these methods. We enforce nuisances under 92.02 of our code. We inspect rental registration or rental properties. We require rental registration, and when they violate it, they can be cited with a municipal civil infraction. We require inspections every 3 years of our rental homes right now, and we require that they meet International Property Maintenance Code, state building, residential, mechanical, electrical, plumbing codes, state housing law, and our own zoning. We utilize a civil enforcement process. Currently, we utilize municipal civil infractions. It's similar to a ticket. We used to enforce our blight ordinances through misdemeanor, which created a protracted legal process that involved, that theoretically you could be incarcerated for failing to maintain your grass. Really, as Garden City Council at the time when we made the change from misdemeanor to municipal and civil infractions, we were looking to make it more proportionate to what was actually happening. So it became easier to enforce. Now, we'll look at an Administrative Hearing Bureau tonight, which I think is even a further step in that direction, but it properly placed it. We also have vacant property registration, again, with the prevention of blight being a primary purpose, to protect the health and safety and welfare of our neighborhoods, protect property values, and our neighborhood integrity. Our takeaway from what we do right now and where we want to go in the future is that blight enforcement and rental regulations regularly implement the master plan's housing neighborhood goals and use existing city codes to protect the safety, stabilize our neighborhoods, and support quality of life. So every day, with that in mind, our staff comes to work each day to carry out using the tools we have, but we're always looking ahead to see what's available to us. One of those things that's come up a number of times, particularly Councilwoman Carol Fotis has brought it up, and it's certainly an interesting topic, and that's why I want to bring it in front of council tonight. And I brought our city attorney here as well to talk about it, is East Lansing uses it's called a rental overlay ordinance to allow residents to petition to limit the amount of rental homes in their jurisdiction. Currently, East Lansing uses a zoning-based residential restriction overlay district that lets owner-occupants in low-density residential neighborhoods effectively limit or even block new rental licenses in their area if 2/3 of the property owners agree and the city council also adopts. Ultimately, city council holds the ultimate authority of it, but the petition and the limitation created in the neighborhood is driven by the neighbors, driven by the neighborhood itself. Is that what they want for their neighborhood? Currently, we do not limit how many homes can be rentals. Instead, our method of regulation currently is requiring every non-owner occupied dwelling to be registered, inspected, and corrected and certified before it can be rented. And then every 3 years, we recertify. It's a certificate of occupancy style regulation. We are less in the number of rentals, but the outcome is to try and maintain those properties. But what's attractive about the East Lansing is neighborhoods can sort of develop their own character and decide whether they want to have rentals in there. If over 1/3 of them, or over 2/3 of them want to limit those numbers. So how does it work? East Lansing creates zoning overlay classifications. They do not affect the base zoning, so if it's a residential 1, it stays a residential 1. But what they overlay on top of that is just limiting the number of rental license permitted in the area. How it happens: property owners map a proposed district boundary. They gather signatures from at least 2/3, 66.7% of the parcel owners in that boundary, and then it's submitted to the city clerk as a petition. Then it goes to planning, zoning, and they review it. They hold a public hearing, and then council can adopt the overlay ordinance if they so choose. Again, effectively saying not just is the standard of the rental up as our certification process does, but it can prevent a neighborhood from speculators and a significant amount of rentals moving into one particular area at a time. That's only though if the residents themselves, through a petition drive, establish that policy. There are certainly pros and cons to any type of process like this, but it is worth considering given concern over the quality of housing that comes associated with that industry and the negative impact that even East Lansing has noticed from those from carrying that out. I brought Attorney Kevin Smith in, or Kevin Bennett in, I'm sorry, and to discuss it today, just to address the legal concerns and applicability to Garden City.
This is kind of a novel approach. Case law on this specific issue is scant. The only case I could find is an unpublished case from the Michigan Court of Appeals. It's the East Lansing case. And in that case, one of the residents of the neighborhood challenged the ordinance on the basis that the zoning ordinance is a violation of his or her right to substantive due process. What that means is that the challenge would have to show that there is no reasonable governmental interest being advanced by the present zoning classification, or that an ordinance is unreasonable because of the purely arbitrary, capricious, and unfounded exclusion of other types of legitimate land use from the area in question. In this case, the City of East Lansing put forward the rationale for their overlay ordinance. It was to protect the privacy of residents and to minimize noise, congestion, and nuisance impacts by regulating the types of rental properties, and 2 other criteria. And the Court of Appeals held that those were legitimate government interests and that the means to achieve that government interest were rationally related to the content of those overlay ordinance. There is no published case on this type of zoning. I know that some other communities have it. They're typically like Traverse City, resort towns, or college towns where there's a high transient factor there. Whether or not Garden City would have one of those as a basis to establish this ordinance is not entirely clear. The one concern I would have with this is if Garden City adopts an ordinance for this overlay district to control rentals, that they could get sued for violation of constitutional rights under federal law, under 42 U.S.C. 1983, which is violation of a person's constitutional rights under the color of state law. For that reason, I would not ask the council to consider anything more expansive than this East Lansing ordinance. I think the fact that it's resident initiated also is helpful because it shows that's what the residents want. Anybody have any questions for me on that?
I do.
Go ahead, Councilmember Karafotis.
So by what you just said, when they brought another case up, they said what the city thought was pretty straightforward. Like, we want to make sure our city's staying safe and free of whatever they want to call it. Of transients. So in our city, we have, I think, 12% of rentals?
Yeah, we have about 1,000 registered right now.
Right, and out of 11,000 homes. So, so if the city proves to say, okay, when there's a rental, the house isn't kept up enough, the taxes are, your property values go down if you're in a neighborhood with a lot of rentals, or there's more crime in the area, there's rentals, like, when there's apartments and stuff like that. All those things could be valid reasons to go along with that. I'm sure East Lansing did something like that too.
Yeah, what what I believe prompted the residents of East Lansing was the high density of student rentals in neighborhoods around campus. I think that Garden City would have a basis to adopt this ordinance. However, it's got to be considered in light of the current ordinance that's not in the zoning ordinance for registration of rental properties. I believe the minimum period under the ordinance for a rental property is 6 months.
You mean here in Garden City, we do require that they're registered for rentals?
Yes. It would be interplayed with that.
Okay, so what else would we have to do to do something like East Lansing? We're not a college town, but we do have a large amount of rentals.
You would have to amend the zoning ordinance when that would originate with a public hearing at the Planning Commission. And the Planning Commission would make a recommendation to the council on whether or not to adopt the ordinance after the public hearing.
I just think that we've always been a bedroom community, and right now it seems like corporations are buying up all these rentals, and people are not being able to afford. They're paying the same thing or more for rental than they are for home. So now we have all these people that are moving in and out of Garden City because there's just rentals, and they can't afford a home because there's not enough.
I think that would be a rational basis.
No, Tim? Do you know, I'm sorry, it says that the property owners map a proposed district boundary.
Yes.
Are there some kind of minimums or maximums to those boundaries? Could it be one street, one block, or could,
Yeah, and that actually has come up, we've discussed that. I think that's where the Planning Commission and the council come together to oversee and make sure there's a minimum that they're satisfied with, because ultimately the authority vests in council, and it's got to run through the Planning Commission. So, yeah, if you had a five-house district that gets created, that might be with, not consistent with the intent of the Planning Commission or council when they pass the ordinance. So they have the ultimate authority to say, we see your petitions, but we don't agree that this is the right amount or place.
Do we know what it is for East Lansing?
I don't know the answer to that without a thorough analysis of the zoning ordinance, but I believe that city manager is correct. There should be some description in the proposed zoning ordinance about how big the district has to be, the size of the district.
Right, so we,
That's a discretionary consideration for the planning commission and the council.
what's your recommendation?
My
blocks.
recommendation is this is a discretionary issue for the council. Legally, you can probably do it.
But I'm saying,
However, I would not want to expand the restrictions any greater than what East Lansing has.
Right.
This one I feel comfortable with because it's ultimately been upheld against a challenge by an appellate court, notwithstanding the fact that this is not a published case. I did some research on this case. It came out of 2008. There have been no further published decisions or unpublished decisions since then, but the Supreme Court, there was an application for leave to appeal to the Michigan Supreme Court after this Court of Appeals decision was made, and the Michigan Supreme Court rejected the application for leave to appeal, saying that it's not an issue that we're going to consider at this time.
so something to go in front of our planning commission to say, we're going to say every 10 block area, square block area, if we get 67% of the neighbors to sign a petition, they could bring that to council and say, we don't want any more rentals in our neighborhood.
Yes. And then ultimately, it's not the residents who are going to decide that.
Right, we'll come to council, yeah.
Mayor,
Councilmember King.
I was looking into this a little bit too, and the cities I've seen that have this kind of program, like you mentioned, East Lansing, Kalamazoo, Ann Arbor, they also have a greater amount of renters. East Lansing, at least what I could find online, 60% of their homes are renters. Kalamazoo was 57, Ann Arbor was 54, roughly. But I could find for Garden City, we're closer to between 15 to 20%, quite a bit less. We're even actually less in the neighboring cities. But I could find for like Dearborn's like 33, City of Wayne's 42, Dearborn, I already mentioned Dearborn. But anyways, how does that play into the legality of this? Since we are significantly lower percentage-wise than the cities that do have this type of zoning.
It could conceivably be a factor, not necessarily, though. Again, there's a dearth of case law on this issue. But the rationale that the Court of Appeals has approved in the East Lansing case is something that Garden City could follow, notwithstanding the lower percentage of rentals.
Do we also, I'm looking into East Lansing, it may look like they did like a study kind of showing that there is a nuisance in the area and other things. Do we need those other factors
I would
to help
suggest-
support it?
Yes, absolutely. Have a clear, defined goal in mind, and that can be set forth in the ordinance itself.
So we need to keep record of renters that's, violating ordinances, not keeping the house up to date and that kind of stuff to show.
There should be maybe,
Yeah, we have that record, I mean,
we do have the records?
we know how many ordinances are written to rentals, yeah. I mean, we could look up every rental and say, this one had 5 times it got wrote up for tall grass, this one got wrote up. I mean, we certainly keep track of that.
But do we need that, or do we just need to specify in the ordinance what we're looking to correct? Do we need the history of our rentals currently, or can we just say, okay,
I would say both.
okay?
Probably more helpful to have
Well,
steps.
it would be, but I'm just,
Right.
is it required? Would you think it was required?
Any other questions for Mr. Bennett?
How long do you think this process would take?
one planning commission meeting and one council meeting, and then before that, the city manager and I would have to sit down and work all of this out and draft a comprehensive ordinance. And if there is studies that you refer to, I would like that to be within the parameters of the ordinance also.
Okay, I know the last time we talked about this, about rentals, specifically apartments, but I know that, I don't know whether it's this chief or this chief, we talked about there was more police presence at rentals, like they get called to rentals more often than they do a regular, family-owned home. What does everybody else think?
Oh,
I guess Mayor?
I was going to ask.
Comments?
I guess a little bit more. If we're trying to make sure renters are complying, I mean, not renters, the landlords are complying with our ordinances. I mean, I was comparing our ordinance with neighboring cities, and some of them do have a little more, I guess, strict guidelines. For instance, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Smith, but I think we look at, they re-inspect renters, rental homes every 3 years.
That's what we do.
However, I see Wyoming, they have if you have minor violations, it's every 2 years. If you have major repeat issues, they start doing it every 1 year. I guess, looking at our ordinance, I think there's things we could do in our current ordinance to put the ownership on the landlords, the home, and take it off the renters on upkeep of the property.
Well, that may or may not be feasible. As a practical matter, most leases that I've seen require the occupier of the property to do the maintenance and upkeep, like cutting the grass, shoveling the snow, that kind of stuff.
You're saying the contract between the landlord and the renter?
Yes.
However, if the city puts that ownership on the landlord, ultimately, if the grass isn't cut, we're going to bill the landlord.
Well, it would go on the property, which would be the landlord.
We do that already, though.
Right, we do that now, but then, obviously, that would be a battle between the landlord and the renter that said, I have a contract that says one of us is responsible, whoever, whether it's the landlord or the renter, that would ultimately take control, take ownership of that.
Right, but regardless of who's responsible for it, when we send an ordinance violation, it goes to the owner of the property. It doesn't matter if they were renter or not.
Right. It goes to the owner, and then that's their battle of who's
Yeah, it would be
going to pay.
between the landlord and the lessee.
Mayor,
Councilmember Hughes.
do you have a recommendation that you feel would be a better way to approach this, our concerns about,
About limiting rentals,
yeah?
I think the only enforceable way you can do that is with the zoning ordinance amendment.
Mayor?
Councilmember
I
Careful.
mean, I think the whole point of the ordinance is so we can limit rentals. It's not just to get them to stop violating ordinances. It's so that we don't have a city full of rental houses.
Right.
What I would like to see, I know we have 12% or give or take rentals. I'd like to see a map of the city and, the little red dots of where they all are. Are they congested in one area right now? Are they
Some of them.
That would be nice.
scattered? I'd like to see that map. Maybe administration could put that together for us, please.
And with that map, I guess it would be nice to see repeated offenders, if we have that information.
And to take that one step further, is there any way to identify which homes are owned by the same person?
Sure. We have that information.
I know
Yeah.
we have it, I don't want,
There's one free flyer I can think of.
I-
Not going to say any names.
well, that's what's happening, though. And, like Councilmember Karafotis has stated multiple times, it's a business.
Mayor,
Councilmember Hughes.
quick question. Speaking of a frequent flyer, that sounds like that could be if we were to do something like that, could be the person who could bring a lawsuit more than likely because they have the biggest stake in all of this.
Yes.
What would be the likelihood, you think, that particular management group or whatever they are would sue the city?
Yes.
Mayor?
Councilmember Karafotis.
But we're not talking about telling the people that own houses now they can't rent. It's just moving forward.
Well, if you lose the ability to
Right.
buy homes.
They would
to
lose the
rent.
ability to buy homes in neighborhoods that we had in the overlay ordinance, yes.
Right.
I would assume the rental properties now are going to be grandfathered in.
Right.
And it would be moving forward.
Yes, but I think a management group came here because they wanted to acquire more and more. It seemed like it was an easy thing for them to do. And people don't like to back down when they have a source of revenue.
True. No question about that.
But that's why we have ordinances to protect us, just like they have their rules to protect them.
Right.
Questions, further questions, comments,
Mayor?
council?
Mayor?
Yes, council.
I think it's important, too, the part of this ordinance is saying that it's on the residents. So if we see an influx of residents come forward and say, yeah, I would really like that in my neighborhood, and they're willing to go to their neighbor 4 blocks down and 4 blocks over to say, listen, this is important to us, we don't want any more rentals, we should be listening to that.
Sure.
If we make the ordinance and nobody comes forward and says, I don't care, well then, they don't care. But I think if our residents knew that they can make it a possibility that they don't have to live in a neighborhood with half their block being rentals, they would do it.
I have another comment.
Go ahead, Councilmember King.
I guess, I mean, I don't have issues with renters per se if they're keeping up the house. And I think most homeowners or neighbors, the issue becomes the house not being kept up, the roof's falling apart, the window, whatever it is, the grass is not being cut. I don't think it's, if your neighbors are, the house is being kept up, I don't think the people care if you're a renter or they own the house, as long as their property is maintained. So I think the better focus, less liability for lawsuit, is beefing up our ordinance to make sure the properties are being maintained.
Mayor?
Are you done?
I am, thanks.
Oh, in response to that, I think the greater concern is affordable housing in Garden City. And I know that homes are renting in the Metro Detroit area at $2,000
Right.
and up. And it's become unaffordable. And I don't know if that's our concern about everybody's lifestyle and if they can afford a home these days and, be able to rent a nice house. That's on the individual about, how much is in in their coffers to be able to afford that type of thing. But if we're looking at keeping Garden City an affordable place to live, whether it be a rental or buying a home, I think is what is driving some of this concern.
I guess to add on to that, I mean, I know quite a few people today, I mean, it's just hard to buy a house. I mean, with interest rates so high, how much you have to have down. Quite a few people I know out of college rented for 4 or 5 years till they could save up and buy a house. So I think there is a place for renters for, situations like that.
Yeah, I'd like to see the map of where they're located and possibly maybe administration kind of take a look at different types of zones, 10 blocks, quarter mile, whatever, different kind of zoning that we could look at also, different options that we could look at to see, something to compare.
Absolutely.
Mayor?
Councilmember Karafotis.
When we go back to our master plan, housing drives community vitality. So we want people to want to move to Garden City. So if someone says, I'm going to buy this house right here and it's in between 2 renters or there's 4 renters on my block, there's a reason that we put those things in our master plan. We also, when we rehab these houses and we get them back for taxes and we sell them to the company that rehabs them, we don't let them turn them into rentals. They have to sell them to a single family. That's kind of following all our plans in a row, is that we want our community to be a place that people want to live. So we talk about safety concerns when it comes to rentals. We talk about what drives our community. People, I guarantee that the best houses in Garden City aren't the rentals. So when we talk about different neighborhoods or different quality of houses, the majority of them are going to be rentals. It's not this wonderful house that just got built and then all of a sudden turned into a rental. Those houses are the ones that are purchased. So I think that is going to show us when we find out what neighborhoods and what these houses look like, that those are the ones that are being bought up for a cheap price and then they're charging $2,000 And I don't know how you can live in a house for $2,000 a month and then turn around and buy a house and pay $1,500 a month. You know what I'm saying? So I just think following our master plan, we're supposed to be driving towards that.
Mayor?
Councilmember King.
I'd just like to add, I would agree. I think rental properties aren't being kept up. I think our ordinance for rental properties is somewhat relaxed, what I could see from neighboring cities. And I think if we do beef that up, those rental properties will be more comparable to homeowners.
Okay, do we,
Mayor?
little more information that we want from administration, then we'll, I know he's got a lot more stuff to move on to, so. Councilmember Hughes.
Just quickly, I think it's a well-known fact that people who rent, they don't necessarily plan on staying there forever, and they don't invest themselves into the city. And Garden City's a nice, small town feel, and that's because people are invested in the city. And renters typically don't invest themselves and dig themselves deep within the community. And I think that's a big concern, too.
Okay. One more with Councilmember Dole.
I just want to say real quick, just, aside from following the master plan, we're all sitting up here to speak for our residents.
Yep.
And if those residents come before us and they want something, we need to listen to them.
Sure. And I think that'll happen as we go
Exactly.
forward, we get more information and we have public hearings. Maybe it takes more than one public hearing, and we'll see how that goes, but more fact-finding right now and get some information out. So I'll turn it back over to Mr. Gibbons.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Myself and the city attorney will take your input, answer your questions, and bring you back some information so we can proceed further. The next topic was fire inspections for single-family or multifamily rentals. I'm going to bring up Chief Keen to discuss that. Just to understand where we are, though, our current practice, our single-family rentals are inspected every 3 years. There is a life safety scope. The rental inspection checklist addresses fire and safety issues on the single-family homes. Like I stated before, the sample, it was a number that struck me was the 1,800 instances of bedroom smoke detectors missing on initial inspection, but then we got 90% correction rate. So we are seeing some impact, but myself, the chief, and the fire marshal have discussed this topic, and I'll let him take it from there.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. As part of that, you see the 1844, for instance, for smoke detectors. As you know, we've had that program with a significant number of those detectors do go to rental homes, not to multifamily or apartment buildings, but they do go to the single-family homes. So we do have an impact there. But as the city manager stated, the single-family rentals, I know the building department does that currently. We took a look around some of the surrounding communities and a little further out through either through relationships both through the fire marshal or myself, and tried to figure out what these communities do for single-family rentals. The majority of them have single-family rental inspections, but they do not have standalone fire inspections. So, but there are times that the fire department does run the rental program. It's just a matter of the larger cities, it seems that they have their own inspection, bureau or whatever. Some of the smaller cities may have the fire department doing those rental inspections. They're very similar to ours, either a 2 or 3 year period where they go in and they check the same things, the egress, the electrical issues that potentially are there for like the 6 outlet power bars that are all over the place, or electrical cords strewn across, or maybe there's doors blocked, things of that nature. But those are found on those inspections. So there are some things that can be hit on that, but not as many are related to the code directly. As you can see here, the peer practices around that, I didn't find any fire departments that do fire inspections on single-family homes specifically just as a fire inspection. But what we did find is a lot of them do it for multifamily. So the apartment buildings, we kind of discussed multifamily, anything 4 or more. So, and this is something that the fire marshal and myself have discussed prior. I know a couple council members have brought it up as well. We think that this may be a potential for us to get some access to some of these buildings. Number 1, for the safety of the residents. Number 2, for our knowledge of the buildings, which is huge. And number 3 is ultimately the safety of those residents. So as you can see, some of the things that would apply to these multifamily residents compared to single family, some of them have fire alarms. Now a home could have it, but we don't have any jurisdiction to make sure those things are certified annually. In a multifamily residence, we can. If they have sprinkler systems, we can make sure they're maintained annually. They're also required to have fire extinguishers in common halls. They're supposed to have exit signs. These things wouldn't apply to single-family homes, but to the multifamily, they're required. So right now, we have an opportunity to be able to get into these buildings and enforce some of these things that are, yes, they're being looked at through the rental inspection, but that's once every 3 years. We feel that something that can make as big of an impact with that many people should be done annually. There are other communities around that do this. And that is a standalone inspection. It's not included in the rental inspection. It's a fire inspection. Personally, I know I come encounter with an apartment building here. We went into it for a medical. There was 2 stairways. It was upstairs apartments. One of the doors was plywooded over at the bottom. No idea that it wasn't functional. So if there would have been a fire, they would have tried to go down the steps. No way out. So those are the things I think we can capture in the multifamily inspections comparatively. So, and as it states on here, there's a lot more that applies through the fire code. It kind of aligns with what we're trying to do with protecting the potential for public. When you have these apartment buildings or the multifamily dwellings, you don't know how many people are in there. When we show up, we don't know if, is there 4 people in an apartment? Do they have guests over? It's a little harder to keep track or ask those questions compared to a single house. I show up to somebody's house, I ask you, hey, who's in there? You generally have a knowledge of who's in your home. And these ones, it's anyone's guess, so we have to, obviously search a little bit differently. And then also, it's the highest life safety at stake. I'm sure we all seen many apartment buildings on TV that once a fire starts, it ends up going through a whole apartment, and 10, 12, 24 people could be displaced or families can be displaced. So this would aim to prevent some of those potential issues. Number one. And number two, it's also protection for our guys, right? Ultimately, having access to those buildings, have an idea of what the layout's like. Is the stairway blocked? Are the doors blocked? Is the fire system working? Those things could be a huge impact for both us and for the safety of the residents. So, next slide, if you. Oh, all right, so, sorry. Moving forward, though, so like I said, we've discussed this, and we feel that this would be a great opportunity. There will have to be some changes made to a couple ordinances, but we feel that this is a huge opportunity for us to make an impact in some of these buildings. I know we've had a few incidents that we have lost buildings, unfortunately, so if there's any chance that we could protect those residents or those buildings, I think it's a valuable tool we could provide. So,
Anybody have a question for the fire chief?
I do.
Go ahead.
So basically, it'd be just like every business in Garden City, we all get inspected once a year. You come in, you make sure the emergency lights are working, that we have the fire extinguishers that are up to date, all that kind of thing. So then apartments would be required to do that every year instead of every 3 years by our building department.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I guess I have a question.
Go ahead, Councilmember King.
I believe the fire inspection for commercial buildings is, I think, $75. Is it the same amount of inspection going for the multifamily, or would you see a different rate for multifamily?
I've been looking at those. That's dependent. We either do, it's based upon square footage for commercial structures.
Okay.
So it's a minimum of $75, and then it's staggered based upon square footage. So there is a scale there. But the majority of the communities that do this have a flat fee and then usually a per unit fee. And I've seen it anywhere from $45 to $125 per unit. So this kind of depends where, you guys would feel comfortable with what's suggested and then what's approved for fee ordinance.
All right, thanks.
Anyone else? All right, thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Mr. Gibbons.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. And I just don't know if you recall, we recognized some police officers and some firemen for some bravery entering a multifamily home where they discovered a door was blocked unknown and that they had to force open during the course of a fire. So, as we brought up this discussion, that came up, and exactly what Chief Keen said. And there's certainly a health and safety interest for our city to protect our residents by inspecting these properties. So, okay, next up is, and then last is the Administrative Hearing Bureau, which is basically Blight Court. As I stated, because we're over 7,500 population and we're a city, we can establish our own Blight Court. Currently what we do though, is a municipal civil infraction, which basically creates a small bureau within, and if someone pays their ticket, they can do so at our bureau. Otherwise, it goes over to the 21st District Court and becomes part of the court process. Like I said, currently we use the municipal civil infraction, which are essentially like a speeding ticket or something like that. But then it does come over to the 21st District Court if we have a regular violator or someone who's not going along with the process, and then we're in the court process to get the remedy. What the Administrative Hearing Bureau does is establish a quasi-judicial forum with a licensed hearing officer. We would hire our own licensed attorney who would be trained in blight enforcement. They would then do a process very similar to our municipal civil infractions, but ultimately it would be adjudicated by the hearing officer in a blight court on a basis that we set. So if we set a court docket of twice a month for blight hearings, we could do so if the demand was there. Then that particular hearing officer can issue, similar to the judge, they can find them responsible for the violation. They can issue an order to debate right at that hearing and have it corrected. If it's not corrected, the city can correct it and then place it as a judgment, and then receive a judgment and then collect it as they would any judgment, which could go on taxes, which could go into collections. There's a number of methods of which we could collect on the fines, fees, and costs. The benefit of it is over the municipal civil infraction, it's a much less protracted process. What I've come to notice over the course of time, while I think the municipal civil infraction was leaps and bounds ahead of the misdemeanor process of enforcement for blight, Administrative Hearing Bureau takes that even farther and really expedites the ability of a municipality to regulate blight. And you know, the process, the longer it is, the longer the blight sits there, the more harm there is to the neighborhood. And what an Administrative Hearing Bureau would offer us is the ability to control that process a little more, tighten up that time frame, and get our neighborhoods and blight reduced that much quicker. You know, I've discussed it with the city attorney, and you know, as I stated, you know, I want council's input and I want his input to make sure we're proceeding down a path, but I am a fan of the Administrative Hearing Bureau and the process. We've contacted, myself and the clerk, a number of communities who currently use it: Port Huron, Jackson, Ypsilanti, Pontiac. We've reached out to all of them. Port Huron's been particularly helpful right off the bat, willing to tell us the benefits of their process. This doesn't mean we have to completely abandon the municipal civil infraction. We could create an Administrative Hearing Bureau and reserve it only for the more regular offenders and more chronic blight issues. If it's something simple, maybe we stick, maybe that circumstance dictates a municipal civil infraction. Maybe if it's a repeat offender, maybe it's Administrative Hearing Bureau. And that's why I put it in front of you. In your packet, I again put a memo that weighs what we're currently doing versus a transition to Administrative Hearing Bureau, or a combination. I've also included the state law and the policies and procedures used by Port Huron to give you some ideas. And with that, I'll just let the city attorney speak a little on it, and then get your input.
The creation of an Administrative Hearings Bureau is specifically authorized by Section 4Q of the Home Rule City Act. The maximum possible civil fine is $10,000, which seems pretty high. Then there are certain restrictions on what may be designated a blight. And those are listed in the statute as zoning, building or property maintenance, solid waste and illegal dumping, disease and sanitation, noxious weeds, vehicle abandonment and inoperable vehicles, and signs within the rights of way. Those would all be deemed, those all could be deemed blight if the city decides to enact this ordinance, and they could be handled administratively. And there is, as the city manager has pointed out, there is some flexibility with how this would be imposed, and again, that would be administrative in nature.
Mayor,
Councilmember Dole.
is there an appeal process?
Yes, appeals would go to the circuit court. Correct on that?
Or district court.
Or district court, okay.
Okay.
Mayor.
I would just say, if we did go with that, I'd just soon keep it all in one place, whether it's the blight court or in 21st District Court, but I wouldn't want to try and separate and say, you're a repeat offender, you're over here, and you're a one-time offender, go there. To me, I would prefer, if we went this way, to keep it in one place. That's my opinion.
City manager is correct. The appeal would be to circuit court, not the district court.
Thank you.
Further comments, questions? Councilmember Hughes.
I've experienced somebody, a frequent flyer, somebody who is a repeat offender for nearly a year before the city was able, this is about 9 months, before the city could actually get control of the situation. And it happened to be a rental. And the problem was not with somebody living there and they couldn't figure it out. They had to figure it out with the landlord. And so that would cover part of our rental problem, I think, if we can speed the process up and make it less favorable for them to continue to not respond to problems.
Mayor,
Councilmember Karafotis.
currently, the system that we have, and they don't pay their tickets, what happens?
So it's first issued, I'll go through the whole process. In Garden City, we very much believe in a green sticker warning for you to solve your problem. So we always begin with a certain number of business days for you to address the problem. If it's an emergency, it's a little shorter, but generally it's at least 5 business days, which in practicality gives you 7 days to fix the problem. It starts with a green sticker. If they fail to address the issue after that time, we go back. If they have evidence that they're working on or something like that, we may work with them, but otherwise a ticket is issued. It's actually called a violation, a municipal civil violation. That then can be paid at the counter at the police department. In the records, it's called our Municipal Civil Infraction Violations Bureau. They can take care of it there. However, if they disagree with it or they don't acknowledge it at all, it gets sent over to the 21st District Court. The 21st District Court then sends out notice, puts it on a docket, and has them come, and then it's subject to the processes of the 21st District Court, and depending on how they want to take it. If they're found responsible, typically then we can come back again for a show cause hearing to abate the nuisance and appeal to the judge for an order for them to abate. If they do abate it themselves, it's done. If not, and we have an order to abate, then we can abate the nuisance on the residence with the judge's order. But it is a much more protracted when they don't cooperate.
When they don't cooperate, does it go on their taxes like it would for the AHB?
It's a little bit more of a process than having the judgment right off the bat. So it's just, again, it's not that we can't eventually get there through the Municipal and Civil Infraction Bureau, it's just the process takes a lot longer.
This is shortening the process if we do it this way.
Yes.
Okay.
Mayor,
Councilmember Dole.
I just want to make sure I heard you right. You said that if they appeal it, it does go to circuit court.
Yes.
So it completely skips district court here.
For the Administrative Hearing Bureau, yes.
Okay.
Further questions, comments?
Yeah, I have another comment. I would be curious to see, I know you said that it's only for certain things, it has to be blight. I guess I get clarification too. We're talking about all ordinances, violations, not just renters, of course, or landlords.
Yeah,
right.
any type of
Yeah.
property owner who is violating our zoning, blight-related, the type of violations are specifically listed in the statute.
I guess I would be interested to see how many we come in throughout the year and how many would actually qualify for this. And I guess then also how many would still have to go to the court. And then the cost, I guess you said this would be administered by an attorney?
Yes.
I guess it's an approximate cost for the city to run a program like this.
Correct. Yep. There's certainly an upfront cost. I do believe you can recover costs and impose fines through the process as well, though.
Further comments, questions? Okay, Chief, or City Manager, Mr. Gibbons, anything else, or?
No, that's it. I just, thank you, Council, for the workshop. I just wanted to put this information in front of you. As I stated, this is à la carte, all or nothing or some of these things. But I just feel like, one, Garden City citizens, I'm constantly reminded, and from you and your constituents, that blight and these issues and property values and maintaining the integrity of the neighborhoods is important. So I put these forth. Please review the materials you've been provided. Please feel free to ask myself and the city attorney any questions regarding these. And then at some point in the near future, at a meeting in the near future, just some direction once you guys have had the requisite information needed to make decisions.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think once you get some of our questions answered and pass out some more information, we can either schedule another workshop to discuss it further and maybe explain which direction we'd like you to go in, and we can go from there. So,
Great, thank you.
For right now, I think we'll leave it at that. I think that's it for public comment.
Yep, we do have public comment.
Okay. Anybody from the public that wishes to speak on this subject? No. I'm sorry? On our blight and rental policy workshop, the one we just had. Okay. All right, no further business, then we will adjourn this workshop, and we'll be back in about 10 minutes to have our regular council meeting. Thank you.